Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying. It's Thursday, so it's time for a dose of rallying chit-chat, or in this case, some virtual rallying chit-chat. So this week the Hard Chargers expansion pack was released for EA Sports WRC, and with talk that this might be the final update for the game, it seems fitting to have a little dive in and talk about what is in there, especially as a few people seem a little bit disappointed with the content. So, what is this pack all about? Should you download it? And is it worthy of excitement or disappointment? The headlines then are 6 new cars, 12 new stages, 18 new liveries, and 16 new moments. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the stages because I'm here for the cars, really, and that's the bit that I find the most interesting and has probably caused the most consternation. Basically, the 12 stages are split equally between Greece and Sweden. As is the way with these DLC packs, those stages are actually just a combination of effectively the same roads, so run in either direction and then split into different chunks. Some people don't like that, I get it, but developing new stages is an expensive and time-consuming business, so I get that there has to be limitations. And it's just nice. I think it's nice at least that we are getting sections of real roads. Obviously, you've got Umea in there and the Umea Sprint, so it's nice to see those in there. And I think there are plenty of stages in the game, so it's not like we are left wanting in that respect anyway. So that is the stages. Let's get on to the cars then, which is what I'm really interested in. These are the Renault Clio Rally 3 and Rally 4, the Opel Corsa Rally 4, the 2021 Hyundai i20 WRC, the 1999 Ford Focus WRC, and a Mark 1 Escort RS 1600. So this is where a few people are disappointed, as they were hoping for a bit more. Personally, I think it's okay. The two Clios are a solid addition, as is the Corsa Rally 4. I know some of you favour the more glamorous, higher end, faster cars. I actually spend quite a lot of time driving the lower category cars because for me, they're more representative of rally cars that I might actually drive at some point, and I think I find the top end cars a bit irrelevant. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're fun to mess around with, but I would very rarely drive a Rally 1 car, for example. I think the Clio Rally 3 in particular was a big omission, so it's nice to see that in there. I think it might actually be a bit nicer to drive than the Fiesta Rally 3 as well. Speaking of which, I think the Clio Rally 4 might be my new favourite car in that category. It just seems to work well, easy to drive, and I was very quickly kind of up to speed with it. So that was a good one for me. The i20 WRC is another nice addition. I think that adds another piece of the puzzle to the 2017 to 2021 car, so it's good to see that in there. It's a shame that we're still missing the Toyota, but I understand there's some political reasons behind that. The i20 is pretty good to drive. I actually quite like those cars. I think they are, in terms, I was just saying how I prefer the lower category cars, but I think if you're going for the high category cars, I prefer driving these era of WRC cars to the Rally 1 cars. But it's nice to see that in there. The gearing was noticeably shorter than the Fiesta when I drove them back to back. But it's a good addition, isn't it? It's nice to have another one of those cars in there from that era, because that era has sort of defined the sport as a high point for the first time in many years. I think we should probably get onto the slightly more disappointing things though, starting with the 1999 Ford Focus WRC. I know this is an important car in terms of it was the one that tempted Colin McRae away from Subaru back in 1999 or end of 1998, and it was the deal that made him the highest paid rally driver in the world at the time. So I get it from that perspective. I think the problem for me is that it's not actually that different to the 2001 Focus WRC that's already in the game, and I drove them back to back and I couldn't really feel a massive difference. So I think in gaming terms, it's kind of, I don't know, you just kind of ended up with two cars that are pretty much the same, even though I get the historical significance. Next up is the Mark 1 Escort. In a way, you could say it's similar to the Focus in that because they've gone with the 2-litre version of the RS 1600, which was used in period, it makes it very close to the Mark II Escort RS 1800, which is also 2-litre, which is also in the game. So like the Focus, it feels a little bit like a styling exercise. I do understand the reasoning behind that. I think having that styling exercise is good because obviously the Mark 1 Escort has a lot of fans. Also, if they had gone down the RS 1600 route with a 1600 engine, it would have been a bit pointless because it wouldn't have been competitive in the class that they've put it in. So I do get that. I think the only thing that was really stuck out for me is that it was an indication of just how bad I am at driving these cars, driving that Escort on gravel. back to back with the Mark II just exposed me as being pretty terrible at driving rear-wheel drive cars, because I'm clearly a front-wheel drive / four-wheel drive Nancy, and I'm not hairy-chested enough to be able to do it. Just finally, I want to mention a couple of the liveries. I'm not going to talk about moments because I've never looked at a moment in my life and I don't see the point in them. But liveries, I've said before that I'm not a big fan of the livery thing. I'm not a big fan of it. It's not something that worries me too much. That said, I think there are a couple in this Hard Chargers pack that are worth a mention. Top of that list is the Michelin Pilot Sport livery for the Escort Cosworth. Oh my gosh, that is one of my favourite liveries of all time. The original livery on the Escort Cosworth, which was the factory livery from 93, 94, was perfectly fine. It's a good livery, but Michelin Pilot Sport is just, such a good livery, such a good livery. So good to see that in there. I think another one worthy of a mention is the addition of the 2 extra liveries for the Mark II Focus WRC. So we've got the factory colour scheme from around 2005, 2006, isn't it? So it's good to see that in there. And also the Eddie Stobart livery as well. So it's nice to see that in there. They are probably more important, aren't they, than the Henning Solberg in livery that was already in there. No disrespect to Henning Solberg, it's another nice livery. So it's just nice to see the factory ones in there, isn't it? Because on some of the cars, we've got some slightly oddball ones. On that subject, just the final livery I want to mention is for the 208 R5. They've added a Craig Breen livery, which is really nice to see from, I think, 2015. Obviously, it's great that they've done that because it's another means of honouring Craig, but also the livery that was available in that car wasn't actually very good, I didn't think. So it's nice to see that one in there too. So that is a quick overview of the contents of the Hard Chargers DLC pack. What do you think of it? Is it a good one? Like I said, I think some people have been a bit disappointed. Overall, I think it's okay. Is it the best DLC ever? No, probably not, but I think it fills a couple of holes, particularly those Clios and the Opel Corsa Rally 4. I didn't drive that because I thought it's probably exactly the same as the 208, but it fills those holes, and I think that was important. And you could argue that those cars should have been part of the 2024 season expansion, but you know, it's good to see them added. So from that perspective, I think I can live with it. I think there's probably a more important question, isn't there? And that is what comes next. I do believe that EA hold the rights to the WRC for the next couple of years. So are we going to see them continue to develop this platform for the 2025-2026 seasons? Or will they launch a completely new game? Of course, there are 2 big decisions there, aren't there? You know, one is a much higher cost than the other. I think there is still some scope to improve the existing platform. I enjoy it on the whole. You know, there are still a few glitches in there. It does have some stuttery graphics on some of the stages here and there, which is a little bit of a frustration. They still need to get that fixed, though they have introduced a few bug fixes with this DLC pack as well. I think I would also like to see some improvements to the physics, particularly on tarmac, as I think that can still feel a bit floaty and unrealistic at times. On that subject, I've recently started to experiment with Richard Burns Rally. I might be 20 years too late, but it's definitely been an interesting experience. Obviously, the physics in there are quite different. Perhaps I'll do a video about that at some point. Until then, though, do let me know what you think of the Hard Chargers pack. Do you think it's worth it? Will you be downloading it, or will you be leaving this one? Also, let me know what you think that EA/Codemasters should do in the future. Should they keep updating the current game, or should they go all in on a new version for 2025 and beyond? Let me know in the comments below. As always, do like and subscribe and find me over on socials, and I will see you again next time.